A famous man once said, "What goes up must come down," but that doesn't seem to apply to any of the prices we're paying for anything relating to owning a car. This video is going to be a deep dive into how we can make some fairly substantial savings on our car. In fact, if you total these up, you can actually save about £2,500 per year. That's £25,000 over a 10-year period. And many drivers make massive sacrifices to just save a few drops of fuel. By eco-driving, you may well have only saved yourself 10 or 20 pence per journey of fuel. And there are far more significant wasters of our money than you'll ever get back by any eco-driving methods. The first obvious thing is choosing a car that is cheap to run. For example, if we take a Volkswagen Polo and compare the running cost of that to a Volkswagen Passat, you're going to make a significant saving. But the Polo is not suitable for everyone's lifestyle, which we know. What I'm going to do in this video then is look at the typical savings for a small car like a Volkswagen Polo and for a larger family car like a Volkswagen Passat. It'd be unfair to compare the two together because we know smaller cars cost less to run than larger ones. One of the big things that drivers just waste money on is driving around with roof bars or a roof rack. They can actually increase your fuel usage by 5 to 15%. On a Volkswagen Polo, that can add up to £40 to £90 a year, and on a larger Passat, you're looking at £60 to £140 per year. It's really worth removing the roof bars or the roof rack if we're not needing it most of the time. And most drivers will just fit it to the car and leave it on. The extra drag it causes makes a significant dent on any fuel economy that we were hoping to get. Also, cutting out weight from the car. You'll often find that the car is full of stuff you don't need, tools that maybe you've used once, sports gear that you've just thrown into the back and you only actually use at the weekend or every other weekend or once a month, and you're carrying all of that weight around with you. The more of a weight saving we can make, the less fuel we're going to use to overcome the inertia of getting all of that moving. Tyre pressures, if they're too low, that increases the rolling resistance and that has a detrimental effect on our fuel economy. How much? Well, if the tyres were 6 psi too low, that on the Volkswagen Polo could increase your annual fuel consumption by £50 to £120. On the larger Passat, you're looking at £70 to £160 per year. That's quite a lot of money, isn't it, when you add it up over the year? And that's just for the sake of checking those tyre pressures. Who we choose to look after our car makes a big difference on the overall running cost. Main dealer prices, the hourly rate is around about £120 to £180 per hour. A good independent mechanic will often charge half that, and that makes a significant saving over the year. For example, on the running cost of a typical Volkswagen Polo, you could save £100 to £250 a year just by not using the main dealer. The Passat will see bigger savings from £150 to £350 per year. A lot of cars fail due to corrosion. The road salts or the salt from the sea, if you live near the coast, can build up and cause substantial structural problems, and that can actually cause you to need to throw the car away after 10 to 15 years. Making the car last longer is a significant saving. What can we do though to protect the car against rust? Well, cleaning it regularly and applying a wax protective coat or some other sealant will go a long way to preventing the deterioration that happens when the bodywork starts getting exposed to these salts and starts to rust. That also includes cleaning off the underside of the car. All of that mud that's sitting in the wheel arches and under the car is just collecting the damp and keeping the damp in contact with the metal surfaces, which is a ripe breeding ground for rust to start taking hold and taking over. If you average the cost of dealing with corrosion or getting rid of the car after 10 to 15 years, it averages out on the Volkswagen Polo to a cost of £100 to £300 a year, and on the Volkswagen Passat, £150 to £400 per year. Learn basic DIY maintenance. You may not have the confidence to do extensive repairs on your car, but simple things like changing the air filter, changing the spark plugs, changing the cabin filter, it's not rocket science, and in the main it doesn't require any specialist knowledge or specialist tools. Most people will have access to what they need to perform these tasks. That goes too for changing wiper blades, changing the battery, although some modern cars need to have the battery recoded when you've changed it. Things like the cabin filter would cost you £15 and maybe 15 to 20 minutes of your time to change it at home. If you go to a dealer or a garage or an independent, you could be paying £70 for that same amount of work. They've got to pay the wages of their staff, they've got to cover their costs of running the premises that they work in. And this is all added into the cost of simple jobs that we could potentially do ourselves at home. Over the year, the smaller Polo class car could save £150 to £350, and the Passat could be £200 to £500 per year saving just doing those basic things ourselves. Shopping around for fuel, buying the cheapest fuel, avoiding the high octane fuel if our car's not designed for it. If the car is not designed for high octane fuel, there is no point using it. You're wasting money. And the difference per litre in fuel really does add up over a year. The small Polo class car could be wasting £120 to £250 per year just with the choice of fuel that we put in or not buying the cheapest fuel in our area. And the Volkswagen Passat class car is even higher at £150 to £300 per year. What could we do with £150 to £300? I can certainly think of lots of better ways of spending that money. Our driving style also makes a big difference. Just taking the speed we drive at. If we drove everywhere at 80 miles an hour instead of 70 miles an hour, the increased drag, the increased fuel consumption could add up on a Volkswagen Polo to be an extra £150 to £350 per year. And on the Passat, that could be £250 to £600 per year. Just dropping the speed slightly to the speed limit does make a significant difference to our motoring costs over the year. Combining short trips, we've spoken about the dangers of short journeys, driving on a cold engine before it's warmed up, the fact it uses more fuel, that more deterioration goes on inside the engine in the warm-up phase at these colder temperatures. And on a small car like a Polo, that can add up to £200 to £400 per year saving when you just aggregate all of the wear and tear that goes on and the need for repair or replacement of parts. And the larger Passat class car would be about £300 to £700 per year. Our car insurance drops on the mat. We just assume that that's the best price and we pay it, or we've got a roll-on contract that just automatically renews every year. That can actually be a bit of a trap for a lot of people. In fact, shopping around each year, the average driver can save £250 to £500 per year on the cost of insurance. On the larger Passat class cars, that could be £300 to £700 per year just shopping around. And it's so easy to do so. There are price comparison websites out there that make it easy to get a number of quotes from leading insurance companies in the market. Now, here's an odd one. You don't buy the cheapest tyre you get the best quality tyre for your money. Now, what most people find, and let me know if you disagree with this, is that cheap tyres degrade more quickly. They offer less grip, less performance. And from my own experience, they often crack before the tread starts to wear out and need replacing. When you add up the cost of cheap tyres replaced more often than better quality, more expensive brands of tyre, you can actually see a significant saving. The Polo could be about £250 to £400 per year of a saving just choosing better quality tyres. And the Passat can see £350 to £700 per year saving. Another significant thing is just keeping on top of the servicing, making sure that we service the car regularly. The oil changes really are critical. Neglecting those has a knock-on effect. We might have to replace a turbocharger more often. Internal components in the engine may start to wear to the point we have to replace the engine or go for a very costly, expensive rebuild. When you average this extra cost of replacing parts on an engine that could have been avoided with frequent oil changes or regular oil changes, the small car driver can save about £300 to £700 per year, and the larger car owner can benefit from the tune of £500 to £1,200 per year. And that's just for the sake of doing an oil change. Now, there is a cost in doing an oil change, but it really does go a long way to mitigating the problems and these additional costs that we get when that has been neglected and the wear and tear has been allowed to accelerate. Avoid car leasing schemes, car loans, PCP where we can. You are paying a lot of money for the privilege of having the car on finance. A lot of the insurance products that come with new cars are also a great way for the dealership to make extra money out of us, and they don't always pay back. I've done another video that goes into a lot of these optional add-ons, the insurances, the gap insurance, the wheel protection, and the various other things that a car dealer would typically get you to sign up to. And there really is quite a wide array of traps where they can get out of paying claims from these. And in many cases, they're just not worth the paper. If we can save up and buy the car outright, we can make substantial savings, and it does mean we need to be disciplined. But a used Polo versus a newer Polo on finance can lead to a saving of £2,000 to £4,000 per year. The Passat is £3,500 to £6,000 per year, just because of the fact that we've bought an older car and we financed it ourselves. We're not paying interest rates on a loan. And just taking the averages of the Polo and the Passat class cars, downsizing to the Polo, we could see a saving of £2,500 a year, or £200 per month. And that leads to a £25,000 saving across 10 years. But the biggest money drain that most drivers ignore is depreciation. You go in, you buy a shiny new car at £50,000, you sell it 4 years later and it's lost 50% of its value. That's £400 per month before fuel or running costs even enter the equation. But a well-maintained used car loses substantially less than the £25,000 we're going to lose on a newer car. This is why a lot of financially wise drivers are choosing older cars with less depreciation and lower running costs. And the cost benefits are really adding up over the long term. We can save substantial amounts of money just making smart decisions and smart choices. And that may even avoid us driving like a granny all the time for the sake of saving a few MPG everywhere we go. If you've enjoyed this video, please boot the like button. If you've got any tips to pass on, I love reading your comments. I do try to read every comment you leave, and that often inspires future video ideas that I have. If you're not subscribed to this channel, and a lot of you aren't, please do so. We'd hate you to miss out on the great content we've got planned. And I've lined up this video and this playlist that you should find really interesting, particularly if you want to keep your car in good order and running as cheaply and economically as possible over the long term.